Hey guys, what's up? Time for another game theory video with the prosperous, peaceful, pleasantly plump Pikachu of peace. And he's going to predict Guilty Gear Strive or talk a little bit about it. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a preview. Wow, that is a lot of previews here of one of the latest Picassos I've been thinking about doing. He looks pretty prosperous. He looks pretty peaceful. I think I draw too many grumpy ones. I need to do some more silly ones. I was also thinking because of Strive and the wall in Strive, maybe I could do an Attack on Titan Pikachu busting through the wall, something like that. I don't know. What do you think might be funny, but very peaceful, prosperous, peaceful, pleasantly plump Pikachu of peace predicts Guilty Gear Strive, something like that. That's a fucking mouthful. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit, what I've talked about this game before, maybe in art form, so it's a little bit easier to digest or something like that. Because I've talked about how I think that Guilty Gear Strive is going to play out, at least what we've seen, right? So I want to maybe art form will make it a little bit easier. And some of the things I've talked about since the very first videos, and like I said, it's ridiculous. They've been beta testing the game for a year and a half now. It's too long. The game is technically old at this point, and from a certain perspective. A lot of P's here. There's going to be a lot of very hard PPs here, right? And like I said before, I've always thought that Strive looks fine. I've never said the game sucks, even though people are saying that I said it sucks. I think the game looks fine. I'm just fundamentally worried about aspects of it, right? I like games that are progressive, and a lot of the even potentially, there's that word again, PP, a lot of P's here. I like progression in games, but even a lot of the potential progressions in this game, are might be pandering to. No, I shouldn't say pandering, but what a long forward, dude. You know what I mean? Let's get into it. So one of the things I said is I feel like this game is going to be kind of like really a live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing. I feel like this. You know what I mean? Because I feel like they are really betting a lot of the farm on the Roman cancel mechanic and everything, the way this works, right? I feel like, take this with a grain of salt, right? Every game has its own kind of shade of color. A little teeter totters to one way, sometimes teeter totters to the other way. And I feel like this Guilty Gear game, when you look at it, you know what I mean? It really feels like maybe a little bit more so on the different shades of gray and teeter tottering. Guilty Gear games before, it was really the character showing off Guilty Gear, right? Do you know what I mean? Showing off the systems of Guilty Gear, because you have things like specific FRCs for characters, and there's a lot of potential individuality even in characters and something like that, right? Whereas this game, I feel like is teeter tottering on the system more so than the characters, right? Especially because of RCs, right? I feel like they are really betting a lot of the farm on this game, with that you are really buying into the RC and how it works in this game. I feel, those kind of interactions where one character, they slow you down because they're about to punish you, but then you have meter, so then they slow you down for you to punish them. These kinds of situations, you know what I mean? I feel like they're really just the whole RC system in general, right? I know, just for what it's worth, I know some guy was saying I didn't know there's fast RCs or some bullshit, which was ridiculous because it's on the website, dude. What are you talking? It's obvious shit. So there was no point, another P there, of even discussing something so obvious, right? And another live by the sword, die by the sword kind of analogy when I think about this game is what they've done with the wall. Because even though it has not been established right now how fast the wall recovers, you know what I mean? But it is still a potential real problem, I think, with how it is, right? So I want to show you some examples, right? Because remember, in this game, you are always hitting the wall. Let's not get into the argument or the ideas that I've talked about where the developers themselves have said they don't know why you would break or not break a wall right now, which is huge clusterfuck, right? You put something in a game and you don't know why you put it in the game. That is not very reassuring, right? That is not very predestined of you. It might be predestined of a potential problem, a predestined potential problem. I don't know. So let's not even get into that. Let's just discuss, and I'll draw a couple of pictures here talking about just one of the fundamental ways of how this works, because I think this is going to make the game, when you're actually trying to play the game optimally or actually competitively, pretty annoying, right? So let's say we got two dudes right here. We got a little dude here, he's fighting, blah, blah, blah. We got a dude right here, they're fighting, blah, 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 right? So here's a wall right here, right? And remember, when you're getting hit in this game, even though you can't see the wall is already breaking. So the final beta doesn't even need to be in our hands. We've already seen these videos. The wall is still working how I said it was working, right? You don't need to hit the wall technically to break it, right? It's starting to break even before you hit it, right? So let's then say it takes, let's throw an arbitrary number out there, whatever. It takes 7 hits to break the wall. So a guy is comboing the guy, boom, boom, boom. He hits him 6 times. He gets to the wall finally. 7 times, boom. The wall automatically splats, even though you haven't done those 7 hits, right? Because the wall is already generating some of that damage, right? So a player, though, if they are counting in their head, they can compensate. I don't know if you can say P there. They can compensate for this because you can be counting in your head, right? But where this is going to be a real fuck up, in which, you know, not a lot of people are talking about, maybe not anyone besides me, basically, since the beginning of this game, is we don't know how fast the wall regenerates, right? Based on past betas and even footage I've showed you can literally break the wall just by doing duck kick, run up over and over and over again, not even as a combo, and that will break the game. So even the potential mind game of this game, say you were to, the wall splats at 7 hits, right? So the guy gets splat, boom, 7 hits, the guy is falling down. Assuming even if you did the lowest to the ground possible wall splat, so the guy falls all the way down, they can't burst it if that still falling down unburstable animation is in the game. You know, we'll see the final beta, whatever. Even if you let them go down because you're like, well, fuck, okay, do I want to, the mind game, potential mind game of, is it, do I do this last hit? I break the wall, the guy flies to the other side, I get that extra hit of damage, and I get that meter bonus. Or the mind game would be, do I let the guy fall down because it is now a unburstable falling down animation until they stand back up again, right? And then I go for my mix up. But in the betas before, even when you did this, it just took another 2 hits. And the guy, if you went for your mix up, it just took 2 hits. So it's a real big conundrum, because you're thinking like, well, do I take guaranteed damage where I get a hit and I get a meter bonus? Or do I go for a mix up, which only gets me 2 hits and then breaks the wall and it's not guaranteed and I get no bonus? So that's a pretty fucking weird kind of thing. The player's like, do I get guaranteed damage? I get 1 hit with a meter bonus. Or do I go for the mix up in the game and I only get 2 hits and it's not guaranteed? Potential big fuck up. But even worse than this, here's one of these problems, right? Let's say that this game even makes it a little bit better, this final beta. Let's say the wall regenerates a little bit faster, which there's no reason to even believe, but let's give it another hit. Let's say it generates a little bit faster, right? Let's think about the game if you're actually playing it and you're counting in your head. Think about what a clusterfuck this is, right? Imagine you're back and forth, neutral, boom, I hit you, you hit me, boom, boom, but they're stray hits, right? A little tap here, a little tap here, maybe I anti-aired you, you know, but I was never able to get any real conversion off it. Then let's say, boom, I hit you with the real combo, okay? Now you get to the wall and you're like, well, fuck, I just counted. Does that last hit that count? Like, where am I at the time buffer? It's like, did that last hit count? Or did that last hit from a few seconds count? Where am I? And you might hit the guy and like, I'm going to guess that I'm at like 4 hits during the wall splat. And so you wall splat the guy and you're like, okay, I get in there. So I get another 3 hits and boom, the guy splats right after that at 5 hits. And you're like, oh, fuck. The time meter for the wall is invisible. I was basically guessing where I am during neutral right now. And now I hit the guy and I did the wrong wall splat combo. And now he's way up here instead of down there. And so now I don't get that unburstable knockdown. And now there's really no Okizumi, even potential guessing game. I really just have to break the wall because there's no point. It's like, well, I fucked up. This imaginary time meter that I cannot see, I guessed wrong. Okay? So let's remember this too, because there are some characters, if you looked at the game before, that do actually have potential ways to use the wall, right? We've seen characters like Chip. Chip could go to 6 hits, again, throwing out an arbitrary number for sake of argument. And Chip could do 6 hits and the guy bounces a bit out of it. And so then you can do a ninja dash. And when you're not doing the wall splat, the ninja dash then hits the guy this way, right? So then you're like, okay, I'm only giving up 1 hit. But then now I'm actually going for a mix up that is not going to give me 2 hits. You know what I mean? To where it breaks the wall. I get as many hits as I want when I'm doing this mix up, all the way till I get to the other side of the wall. That actually gives you a legitimate kind of risk reward option. Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Right? Another character like Soul, we've seen one of Soul's moves. He has some kind of haymaker, whatever it is. One of Soul's moves where he punches you, bounces the guy off the wall, and then they stumble forward after it. Right? As long as it's not when they're about to wall splat. So a character like Soul could be like, okay, well, I don't want to do a 7-hit combo. I want to do a 6-hit combo and then do the wall splat, because then I could potentially, who knows, maybe RC to slow down the game. I could actually do a legitimate kind of like, am I on this side? Am I on this side? Because the guy is flipping this way. There's at least some sort of theoretical mind game there, right? But again, this goes back to what I said. A real potential problem of this wall is because the wall is already breaking when you don't see the wall. So when you're actually playing the game in neutral, if you think about it, and what we've seen actually in beta tests, you know what I mean? So far, even this final beta test, it seems to show this, does it not? The same shit that I've talked about for a year and a half. You're hitting straight hit here, you're hitting straight hit here. And then the player, if you're thinking about playing this game optimally, you're like, well, fuck. Did I get hit by that straight hit? Maybe 30 frames too late, 30 frames too here soon. It's like, well, fuck. And so then you hit the wall. It's like, I'm going to guess I'm only at 6 hits. I'm going to guess I'm only at 5 hits. And so you're doing this, and then Soul goes for his haymaker, and boom, he thought he was at a specific 6 hits. He's like, I'm guessing I'm at 6 hits right now. Boom, he goes for the haymaker, but no, the guy doesn't bounce against the wall and then fall it this way. They stick to the wall, and you're like, well, fuck. I guess I just got to end the combo. Fuck me. I didn't count right. I wasn't counting this invisible time meter in my head because I can't see the wall actually breaking mid-screen, and so I guessed wrong. A character could be doing an air conversion, and I'd be like, well, I want to hit the guy down because I want to do for the sloping animation to get that mix-up, whatever. Again, this is assuming we're being gracious here, assuming it's a little bit more lenient in how fast the meter builds up on the wall, right? But, oh no, he guessed wrong, and fuck, the guy wall splatting. He's like, well, I guess I'm just back to splatting the wall. I judged wrong, right? So hopefully you get what I'm saying right there is a real big potential fundamental problem of the wall, right? You got to look at the game on a deeper level, right? I've never said the game is not going to have combos. I think the game is going to have combos. You know what I mean? I think the game, neutral-wise, it might be fun. But living by the sword, dying by the sword, you've put in a mechanic in the game that you yourself, the developer, have said, we don't know why we put it in there. Okay? You don't know why you put it in there. Not reassuring, dude. You know what I mean? And then you're like, well, so you even try to like, I'm throwing them a bone. Okay, how could you do this? Well, you let the guy fall down, and then you're like, well, fuck. Do I get a guaranteed hit with meter bonus, or do I get a not guaranteed hit and I can get 2 hits? That's the trade-off. And so you're trying to think like, well, fuck. You want it to work, right? Because you don't want it just to be really the wall only to be there for a really, just a sort of infinite prevention, a cheap pop, so a player can feel like they're breaking the wall doing nothing, right? But even when you think about it like that, you're like, well, what about the conundrum of just fundamentally that the wall is breaking even if you don't see the wall? You have to really think about that, because when you're really playing the game, not every character is just going to be like, oh, the match just started. I started my combo. Boom, I'm hitting you. Boom, boom, all the way to the wall. Oh, that's easy to count. Of course you could judge there. But what we've also seen in the beta is, what about actually playing the game and sometimes just a random hit hits you. Sometimes a random hit hits you there. Blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, fuck. Now the player is kind of counting in his head in a real kind of clusterfucky way. So even if they wanted to play the game optimally, it's kind of guessing, you know what I mean, at this rate. Unless they really establish how this works, you know what I mean? Which doesn't seem to be the case. This still seems to be the final beta works. So this is going to make a game You know what I mean? That is, and there's nothing wrong with the game being simpler. There's nothing wrong with and the idea that Guilty Gear does not have neutral in the first place is completely false in the first place. But a game that is trying to tell you that it's more neutrally or whatever fans might be telling you, right? You're like, well, fuck. Think about these situations and think about, fuck. I want to play the game optimally. And it's like, even if the developers did give you a real core idea of how to use the wall and the wall regenerates maybe faster than before, at least a little bit faster, it's like, well, fuck, what about straight hits? Straight hit here, straight hit there. Are you counting in your head correctly? I hit the guy here. I think I'm at 3. Imagine you hit the guy, boom, 1 hit there, 1 hit here, 1 hit there, 1 hit there, with there, and you count, maybe I'm at 3 hits. Maybe I might be at 4, but maybe I'm at 3. So you're like, well, I'm about to hit the wall, so I'm gonna hit there, and then I'll be able to do a hit there to knock them down there. But then you like, boom, it's like, oh, they hit halfway through, and like, well, fuck, I don't get the unburstable fall down animation. I counted wrong, and you're like, yeah, I guess I'm just gonna break the wall, because what the fuck am I supposed to do, right? So that's a real fucking live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing. And when I've talked about the RC stuff, live by the sword, die by the sword, and there's nothing wrong. A game, when I've talked about game theory, you want a game to be able to show off the beauty of the game, right? I've talked about a game like Dragon Ball Fighter Z. They didn't trust their own game. You know what I mean? Like, this is Dragon Ball Fighter Z, the tug of war between fireball, homing, dashing, reflecting, blah blah blah. That's the one new thing in the game. You know what I mean? That's what you need to be focusing on, or you at least need to have characters that can like take advantage of these kind of situations instead of just like, hey, we put something new that is never going to be in a fighting game before. You know what I mean? But we don't actually trust it, so it's there, but we don't actually trust our idea, right? Whereas a game like, Strive right now, you know what I mean? They've put something potentially progressive. Another PP is very hard in this game. But it's so fundamentally and haphazardly put in. It's like kind of live by the sword. It's like, do you accept it or don't you? Live by the sword, die by the sword. It's like, this is the game, dude. You know what I mean? Like, I've never said there's not going to be combos. Of course there's going to be combos, but this is what it is. There's a real fundamental kind of problem to this right now. If you're thinking about it from just a very simple standpoint that, people kind of missing the forest for the trees, I think is, the correct English term. Right? It's like, man, well, what about when you're actually playing the game in neutral? Not every hit that you do on an opponent is always a combo. Sometimes it's just a straight hit. Like, imagine trying to play the game optimally in situations like this. I think that's going to be potentially very frustrating. You know what I mean? Look at Jesus. Fuck, half the people don't even know that it was some people thought it was legitimately random at first, which was ridiculous again, but you know what I mean? That shows what kind of like a haphazard idea is. And the problem is, even if you fix the idea a little bit, it's still the foundation of this idea is very fucking sketchy. Did you get what I'm saying? And so RCs, when I'm talking about living by the sword, dying by the sword, yeah, there's a lot of shit you can do with RCs. But let's get to another thing. You know what I mean? And I said before, you're going to have a lot of situations like, oh, this guy, he's jumping away. Wee. What is that one thing? I do ba-da-ba-da, wee. I do ba-da-ba-da, wee. And so this guy's over here, and he's like, oh, he's about to attack. And then he sees the guy's jumping. So then he's like, he RCs, and he freezes the guy. And you're like, oh, shit, dude, he's using the RC set. But then he's like, oh, I see you, motherfucker, trying to get me. Fuck your titties, dude. You know what I mean? A wee, a wee. And then he freezes, you know what I mean? And I can see some people might be hyped for that. And it might be exciting sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, oh, shit, he froze him, so then he froze him, blah, blah, blah. These interactions, I feel like they're really going to try to sell the audience on it. And just everything you can do with the RC. And even when I showed my video, and people saying that there was less combos, I showed, well, one of the things you can do, and I made videos about it. Again, I fucking have called the game right when they first announced it, dude. I'm like, you know what? Well, because of the way the RC system works, there's never really any reason to believe this game wasn't going to have combos, or you can't convert off something, because when you actually go for a lot of these drift mix-ups or whatever they're calling, because the game is also slowing down as well, and then you add it in, sometimes you're going to be going faster if you do a fast RC, whatever. But for the slow one specifically, dude, the guy freezes. So I even showed, oh, Kai, well, when the guy freezes, Kai can do a high-low mix-up and off the high-low mix-up, because the guy's still frozen even after the fireball hit, you can high-low mix-up to fireball, then go back in and get a combo. The guy is still frozen that long. So there will be, when you think about old school Guilty Gear, unless they changed how long the timer is, you know what I mean, the final version of the game, there's no real reason to believe that there was never going to be mix-ups or anything like that. There's a ton of shit you can do with RC in this game, you know? But I feel like, you know, they're betting the farm on this a lot, that this is really going to, you know, sell. People are really going to buy into everything that you can do with the RC. And that's why I talk about different shades of gray, right? You know, Guilty Gear is always a game that is, you know, I said Guilty Gear is a successful game even because it shows a lot of goodwill of Street Fighter while having a good progression to it. There's a lot of interesting mechanics to it, right? And then the characters are so good. But whereas I think a lot of older school Guilty Gear games teeter-totter on the character is showing off the game. Right now in Strive, when I look in Strive, I'm like, who are the characters that are showing off this game right now? Who's a character that's really showing off the wall? Again, you know, a character like Chip, I can see, because he is a character that can bounce the guy the other way very easily to actually add a legitimate mix-up. Maybe a character like Potemkin, who does so much damage off a single Potemkin buster, you know, maybe he is a character that could take a little bit more advantage of the guy just falling down because the damage is so high. That's a real mix-up. But certain characters, you know, it's like, man, this is looking pretty sketchy. This is kind of looking, just in general, a very shaky foundation for a new thing on the game. So it's like, really, do you buy into this, dude? You know, even we're talking about RCs. Imagine how it's going to affect something like when the guy dashes, right? And I've talked about this before. You know, the extreme plus, and they still don't have this fucking thing. I don't know why you don't have the green bubble. I don't know why you don't have to FD a fucking jump in, or, you know, a DP. That's fucking retarded, dude. Jesus Christ. In the game that is the most risky game to jump ever. It took them, was 6 months or a year before they even added any recovery, which again was funny because people said I never noticed it, but it's literally one of the main things I'm talking about, how fucking retarded it was that they've been saying this for so long. And it was 6 months or a year, whatever that beta was, before anything had recovery. You know what I mean? Christ, dude. Don't get me wrong, dude. I mean, he was a smart guy at one point. Now now I feel iffy about these guys. You know what I mean? But, you know, they get credit at one time. Very, you know, they deserve a lot of credit. Now the credit is they're going on goodwill. They're living off their goodwill because there's some sketchy will right now, dude. Right? But so even think about this, and I've talked about this. When people are saying like, oh, when you air dash, it's so amazing how there's an orange bubble. There's different ways you can go. You know what I mean? I can go this way. I can go just this way. Wee, a dooba dooba da, a wee. I don't know what that meme is. What does that mean? The a dooba dooba da, a wee meme? Whatever the fuck it's called, right? But anyway, remember, when you air dash like this, you know, I've talked about, you aren't reacting to the air dash anymore. You are reacting to just the orange bubble. Think about how this even affects something like RC. I would like to see, once the game is played more, you know, say a character like Kai, maybe he's doing a fireball, he's shooting some fireballs. A dooba dabba da, a wee boo boo. He shoots his fireball, whatever. You know, I think it's yellow now. Hopefully it's blue. But he's shooting his fireball, or it's anybody, right? So imagine a character's jumping, and you know what I mean? Kai, he's iffy about FRCing it, or whatever it's called, or RCing it, whatever it might be, right? Because he's like, oh, is the guy just going to neutral jump? Or maybe he's going to like backdash and just neutral jump, and he's doing an attack down. He's guessing. But in a game like this, you're going to have situations where, and I would like to see just how fast this is, just how much you can react to this once the game comes out. Now, in a situation like this, if a Kai is, or if doing this, you are only reacting to the orange bubble. And when you see that orange bubble, you hit your 3 buttons, right? Because he can't be backdashing. He can't be just neutral jumping up trying to bait you. He can only be going forward. And then I would like to see, if it's fast enough, boom. He can only be going forward. So he has to be in your bubble. He has to be getting hit by your RC bubble, which will then slow him down and potentially always allow you to punish, right? You know, 50 always, quotation marks, whatever. You know what I mean? These are situations where, again, I'm like, man, they're betting a lot on the RC system that you are going to buy into it. Again, teeter-tottering, I feel more so on the system. Do you buy into the system of what Guilty Gear is now more so than the characters? That's what it seems like to me. Not that it's not at all, but these are the things that I think about when I look at this game. You know what I mean? I'm not, a lot of people are just talking about simple shit, right? You know, and even I think this is pretty simple. I mean, this is shit I've been talking about for a year and a half now, right? But, you know, these are fundamental issues, you got to look at, you know what I mean? Like, is this the game, the way, is this the way the game works? Right? You know, I mean, these are actual legitimate discussions that people should be having, right? Because again, I've never said I don't think the game's not going to have neutral. Of course, I think the game looks fine. You know what I mean? I like some of the progressive takes on it, but fundamentally speaking, some of the things in the game potentially worry me, especially the wall, especially the fact that the developers constantly say this is the most risky game ever to jump in. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, well, man, you know, and this is even without the FRC, whatever. You know, maybe if I just see the orange bubble, you know, I'm not reacting to the air dash anymore. What if I just jump back? Yeah, you know what I mean? What are you going to do? You're going to make me block an air attack, you know? And I'm not saying there's no anti-air, there's no air-to-air conversion. Not saying any of that, but look at the bigger picture here about this game and try to have an intelligent conversation, or at least a thought process of like, how's this game going to work, right? Do you know what I mean? When you actually play it, what are going to be the frustrating aspects? Because again, I mean, to be honest, like I said, I think this game looks more interesting than XR. Like I said, because XR was one step forward, one step back. This looks like more of a new game, which from a certain perspective to me, since I like progression in games, is kind of interesting, right? But there is some very shaky foundation and there's hypocritical comments being made about the game, which is not encouraging, especially because they've been being mentioned for a year and a half. And even the jumping thing was not even totally addressed to what, 6 months to a year after. And even in these recent betas, there's still iffy shit about it that does not match up with what the developers are actually telling you, you know? That was long-winded. I don't know. I mean, I feel like, you know, like I said, I actually think this is a fucking simple conversation. But people people were surprised that there's fast RCs, right? I mean, are you serious? I mean, that didn't look too like. I mean, they have the whole thing on their fucking website discussing it, and I think it's very obvious if you actually look at it for a second. It's like, man, they're betting the farm that you love the RC system in this game. And it's potentially, when it has shaky foundation for other stuff and some of the stuff, especially the wall, it's potentially scary. I mean, look at a game like Alpha 2. I've always said Alpha 2, man, they really bet the farm that people were going to like custom combos. And look at custom combos, dude. I mean, Alpha 2 is such a fucking hypocritically made game. You know what I mean? You see people that suck the game off about how amazing it is. It's getting this resurgence, all this kind of shit. And it's just kind of like, dude, Alpha 2. And you'll see people too that they talk about, no, custom combos don't really matter. They're not that big. This game is pure footsies, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the day, you talk to them a little bit more and they're like, yeah, but custom combos keeps it honest. That's why we have custom combos. It's like, so you just, oh God, the complete brain fart of how fucking retarded people are when they try to argue about games. Ugh, boy. But anyway, this video is already really long. I've already talked about actually just, there's such simple ways to fix some of these potential problems too, specifically the wall, really, right? You know what I mean? Just such an easy way to fix it, but then you have people saying that you can't do any of Clayton's changes because Guilty Gear is a circle. And you realize that is the level of intelligence. That is the level of intelligence of the fighting game community sometimes, dude. Anyway, that was a long video. The end.